You are now tuned in to the Project 365 experience.
Yo, I'm so happy I found someone like me. It's crazy. So let me just tell you a little bit. Um, I grew up when I first started coaching. I started coaching in
Yeah.
Quebec, in Canada,
Mhm.
and you know, I love my city, love the basketball culture that we have over there, but we
Yes.
just don't have the resources per se. Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
So if you notice, like the natural talent is there, but the natural talent doesn't have the necessary resources, whether it's paying coaches, whether it's having consistent strength and conditioning coaches, whether it's
Yes.
having nutritionists that educate the kids and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Love my community, but we're not at the point yet where basketball is taken that seriously per se, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I first started coaching, I also understood that there was a reason why I needed to pay attention to all these other little things beside basketball. So I started taking a more holistic approach to teaching the players.
Yes.
So with that being said, I got a personal training certificate. I got to educate, I got to know what's going on, right?
Yes.
I started learning. I got a nutrition certificate. I'm reading about sleep. I'm listening to all these podcasts, and it seems like it's resonating with me. And it's like the best education that we could have for our athletes is coach education. And we're
Yeah.
much more than just coaches.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm. I
No,
don't
I,
know.
I love that just because, and I'm seeing it so much in the basketball space. There is a lack of, knowledge in the space when it comes to sports performance. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a big gap. Like we're seeing other sports like baseball, football, even soccer. Like soccer is another big thing. Like sports performance is such a central theme in what they do. Like they don't just like for years, basketball was never something that really heavily focused on the weight room, nutrition, like, your recovery. We're seeing guys now make it so much more popular that now it's starting to become a bigger thing. Like LeBron James is very, very known for the fact that he spends over, nearly like over $1 million a year on his body. And, that's like a big, big thing for people in our field because now it's starting to make basketball players more aware of, you have to take care of your body. Like I'm dealing with it right now. Been working with a, Division II level basketball player for the last several months. And like one of the biggest things that he was telling me was, you know, I've never really formally, worked on my body as much as I've done now over the last couple of months with you, and he's somebody that could
And
have
and
potentially
and
been.
and yeah, and before you continue, same thing when I played, me neither. I was
Yeah,
just thought that just doing basketball, I didn't think there was a link between the both of them. But yeah,
yes,
go on. Yeah, go
no,
on.
like no. So like one of the biggest things that, and I just had this conversation yesterday. I was doing an episode for my podcast with a very famous strength and conditioning coach, speed coach by the name of Lee Taft. If anybody knows who he is, he's phenomenal. He's been in the industry for so many years. One of the biggest things that we discussed was the fact that basketball players nowadays are getting to higher levels and the mileage that's being put on their bodies is insane. Like we're seeing 5-star level players going to college and like they're so banged up at 18, 19 years old that by the time they get into a weight room for the first time in college, strength coaches are literally spending the first 5 to 6 months just trying to regen and just get their bodies back to neutral where they're actually at a stage where they can actually make improvements in the weight room. And that
Mm.
was something that I've experienced firsthand working with a particular athlete this summer. He's somebody that, when you look at him walk through a door, like you could see like he could have been a Division I athlete. He's 6'6", 6'7", and long, could shoot the rock at a high clip, and he had the skill there, but his body just wasn't physically ready to handle a Division I schedule. Like he was banged up. He could barely do a crossover without having issues in his groin and hips, and his knees were all banged up. Literally after the first like 6-7 weeks of training, literally came up to me, is like, dude, like I was never able to hit like a between the leg crossover without feeling pain. Like now I can actually get on the court and I'm doing moves
Mm.
and I feel 10 times better. Now go accelerate that another like couple weeks. Now we're at the point where He's added literally like 13, 14 pounds to his frame. He's going to be entering his next season probably he was going last season as a freshman in college. He was 180 pounds soaking wet at 6'6". He's going to be going next season now at like 205, 250. And he's going to be a guy that's going to be a problem next year. And it's like, he would have never done any of that had he just gotten into the weight room earlier in his life. And I feel like that's the biggest problem with basketball, particularly, is kids are literally waiting till they get into college to actually take care of their bodies, when it's like, we're living in an era where, AAU basketball, like travel basketball, is such a big part of the culture. But the problem is that the system currently is not in place where we're fostering development, and we're seeing guys here in the States that are getting to the college level or even higher up into the pros, and their bodies have already experienced so many microfractures, joint tissue damage. And by the time they actually get on an NBA professional court, that's where you see so many serious injuries from like first, second, third year players. We've seen it in the past. I always like to highlight an article by an ESPN writer, Baxter Holmes. He wrote an article about how AAU and travel basketball is creating ticking time bombs in our athletes today. And I literally can't speak about this enough, how there is such a broken culture in AAU basketball right now, and it's not fostering any type of development. They try to make you seem like you're getting the world when you sign up for an AAU team. But in general, playing 7 to 8 games in a matter of a 2-day span, and having players feel like they can't even move by halfway through the first day, that's not development. That's just using kids and trying to line pockets versus actually seeing development. And we're seeing it in other countries. And that's why I always tell people, that's why places like Canada, that's why places like, overseas basketball, we're seeing guys like Luka Doncic, like guys like this that have played internationally. They've been in systems overseas where they foster development. They have academies. I always like to relate it to soccer in the sense, because soccer is big when it comes to academies overseas, where from a very young age, you're put in an academy where all you do is lift, you go out on the field, you play, you do your skills training, you work in with the first teams, you do scrimmage type situations where you're working on situational stuff in the game. And then you're also, so it's a system where you're fostering development over time as kids age and get older, versus waiting till a kid is already too late and then
try to get it back.
Then trying to get it back. I'm actually dealing with that again myself. I don't like to name names or anything, but I'm working with right now who's 16, 17 years old, who's at the stage in his point where, he's a reclassified kid. He's trying to get into college basketball, but he also waited till he's like 17 years old to actually get in the weight room. And he's severely undersized. He lacks the strength, lacks the explosiveness and speed. We're trying to get him there right now, but it's at the point where it's like kids are waiting till they're like 17 years old to actually step foot in the weight room. And unless you're the top 1 to 3% of athletes that are trying to make it to that top level, where just the God-given genetics that you have gets you that far, the kids that are far below that point, they don't have a shot. And it's like, that's what the system has made. It's like, we're creating a system where, athletes are being told that they have to go just join an AAU team and you're going to get seen, you're going to get noticed. But it's like, there's no actual system in place that's like fostering this development.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And it's like, I was just talking with a 14-year-old who was like, he's going into grade 10. He just finished grade 9. He's like, yeah, man, I'm missing out this weekend. I'm not playing in this big tournament. I'm not going to get exposure. I'm like, damn, chill. Bro, chill.
Your time.
College coaches not really looking at grade 9s going into grade 10s right now. You know what I'm saying? So
they're looking at the top 1 to 3% of guys in your class. That's it. The only time you're hearing about a 9th grader that's getting offers from a college is the Cooper
freak athlete. freak athletes. Yeah.
Guys that are just absolute freaks. Like they walk in the door, like you got a 6'9", 6'10" freshman. Like that's the guy that they're gonna automatically be like, okay, I gotta look at him. Those are the only guys they're looking at. They're not looking at like the 5'11", like 6 foot guard that like hasn't even fully developed yet. Some players in the NBA that like literally went through growing pains and they had to like actually get to where they are. Like I'm talking about like the Gabe Vincents of the world, like guys that went undrafted that like weren't really guys that went to big name schools. They didn't go to the blue blood programs, like Power 5 programs, and yet he just got paid by the Lakers. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's so many guys out there that are not super noticed, but like they take time to develop. And I feel like when kids try to rush and they're like, oh, I need to get seen now. I need to get that exposure now. It's like, you're 14, dude. You got time. Like nobody in their history ever wanted to be known as the best 14-year-old in their class. Want to be the best 17, 18, 19-year-old when you're trying to get into college or trying to get exposure from like
Facts.
You want to be the best at that time, not at 14. I try to tell people that all the time. Like when we're in the weight room, I'm like, nobody ever got a medal for being the best 12-year-old. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to be the best 17, 18-year-old because that's when you're actually going to get noticed and that's when you're actually going to get the exposure you want to get to the level you want to get to.